Paul Pierce was just recently signed by Boston, so he could properly say he retired a Celtic, and being a Celtics fan, I immediately recalled all the great moments he gave us in green. I watched them religiously in the Big 3 era, and Pierce definitely delivered with some of the most clutch and breathtaking moments, so in honor of that today, I wanted to talk about 5 of Paul Pierce's greatest playoff moments. What's up NBA fans, Dom2K on the mic, and the 2000s were a pretty unfortunate time to exist if you were a wing player, because you were coexisting with the likes of Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and Kobe Bryant. Those three sucked so much air out of the room in the 2000s that a guy like Paul Pierce ended up not getting as much attention until around 2008 when his best years were already behind him. Despite that, Pierce had an amazing career, winning an NBA championship, a finals MVP, making 5 All-NBA teams, placing 15th in all-time points scored, and 4th in all-time three-pointers made. But the thing Pierce is most known for is showing up on the big stage. He made an entire career out of it, so you can imagine it was pretty difficult to just choose 5 moments. Nevertheless, I did it, so let's go ahead and jump into it. Number 5, hit the Tebow. I question how many people remember this, considering I don't think anyone has spoken of the Boston-Atlanta series in 2012 since it happened. However, this was Pierce coming up clutch even in old age. So Boston's first round matchup in 2012 was against the Hawks, but by this time Boston wasn't nearly as dominant as they were in 2008 when they played the first time. Age and injury had caught up with them, and many people expected Boston to be no more than a second round out. Well, this was looking a bit accurate after game 1, where the Celtics would not only lose the game, but lose Rondo for game 2 after he bumped into a referee while contesting a call. Funny story here, I remember writing on the NBA's Facebook wall that I'd never watch another game again if they suspended Rondo because I felt like he'd accidentally bumped into him after stepping and tripping on his shoe. Of course he got suspended anyways, and Boston was now down 0-1 without what might have been their best player by this year. So in game 2, Paul Pierce did what he does best by handing out a classic performance to keep Boston from falling down 0-2. Pierce showed he was out to kill that game by scoring in the first few seconds off the tip and scoring 9 points in just the first 3 minutes of the game. So with no true point guard to distribute the ball, topped off by the fact that Boston was missing Ray Allen to an ankle injury and Jeff Green to heart surgery, Pierce went off on the Hawks for 36 points, 13 rebounds while shooting 46% from the field. He gave the Hawks everything: fadeaways, drives to the rim, a dagger three-pointer, but the best part of it all was the icing free throw. On his way to 13 fourth quarter points to break Atlanta's back, after Pierce knocked down the game-clinching free throw, he jogged to center court and did the Tebow to top off this classic performance. That is easily one of my favorite memories from the Big 3 era. I actually even took a picture of it as I was watching the game live. I'll make sure to post it here if I have it. This type of performance is good evidence that Paul Pierce is a very underrated star. When Kobe or LeBron had performances like this, you'd never stop hearing about it. I don't even think people outside of Boston recognize this one at all. Oh, and the friendly reminder that Paul Pierce was 34 at this time. Talk about legendary. Number 4, sparking the crowd. So you can take this one how you want it. If you remember anything from the 2008 finals besides the Celtics winning it, you probably remember Pierce crumbling to the ground with an apparent serious knee injury. He was down for several minutes, wincing in pain, had to be carried off the court, and was even seen being carted off in a wheelchair, causing many to believe at the time that it was a season-ending injury. Well, especially when you consider that this was the Big 3's only championship, it's a blessing he was able to re-enter the game, but even I'll admit, almost a decade later, I don't know what the hell this was. To be carried off, put in a wheelchair, and still end up being the MVP of the finals, it's hard to believe the injury was as serious as it looked. I've heard so many theories, like the one that says he was trying to give his team an emotional lift, which sounds insane to me. The official story we got was that he actually did injure his MCL, which I still question, and the one that says Pierce actually shit on himself and wanted to get off the court without anyone noticing. Yep, that one has to be it. Anyways, none of us know for sure what happened, so when Pierce re-entered the game, there was a crazy cheer as everyone was pretty sure he had just torn an ACL. And upon re-entering the game on what was described as a sprained knee, Pierce would go on to knock down back-to-back threes in a game that was still very close. Boston would go on to win the all-important Game 1 as Pierce finished with 22 points. This one would rank a lot higher on this list if there was some kind of consensus on what actually happened, but even to this day, nobody who wasn't on the team really knows. Even Phil Jackson thought Pierce was faking it. I guess if I ever do make it big enough to interview Paul Pierce, that'll be the first thing I ask him about. But for now, even if you do think he was faking it, Pierce still gave you one of the most memorable moments of a final series, so that counts for something. Number 3, potentially the biggest dagger ever. So let me back up the logic behind the title to this one. Everyone remembers LeBron's move to Miami. Those of you that were following basketball in 2011 especially remember how much hate he got for the move. Hell, some of that hate still lingers 7 seasons later. Anyways, 1 year passed, LeBron finally got past the Celtics but failed to win the championship, resulting in what LeBron described as the worst summer of his life. Fast forward to the next year's Eastern Conference Finals, and LeBron James just could not seem to catch a break in his career. Chris Bosh had been injured in the previous series, so it was practically just Wade and James carrying the team, and D Rose had been injured, allowing the Celtics a clear path to the conference finals, where LeBron would have to deal with them yet again. After taking a 2-0 lead in the series, everybody expected Miami to again make quick work of Boston, except that the Celtics were able to narrowly even the series up at home. Going back to Miami for Game 5, the Heat truly did have this one in the bag, well, for a split second it seemed. Miami led the game by 6 points with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Brandon Bass got to the rim for a wide open dunk, and Wade got an electrifying block that was a tenth of a second from landing in LeBron's hands for a fast break dunk that would have completely put the momentum in Miami's favor. Of course, Rondo, being the legend that he was back then, touched past it to an open Petrus for one of the best crowd silencers of all time. It was pretty much downhill from there for Miami, as Boston eventually took a 1-point lead, and with just under a minute to go, Pierce hit one of the most memorable shots of the Big Three era right in LeBron's grill, as he never had the slightest intention of being safe by shooting a 2. This shot really just meant so much at the time. There was the whole Pierce-LeBron rivalry thing in the East going on, and I'll never forget for as long as I live that while watching Game 5, there was points where it just didn't seem like Boston had a chance to sneak out of Miami with the win that they desperately needed. After the game, the world started coming down on Miami, as many thought they were going to fail twice in a row after claiming they'd win multiple championships. For the moment, that was one of the most exciting playoff events ever, considering all the storylines and how LeBron always had trouble with the Celtics. Of course, that almost immediately ended when LeBron massacred Boston in Game 6, but for Pierce's playoff moments, that 3, which actually could have been an and 1, definitely ranks as one of his best playoff moments ever. Number 2, 2008 duel with LeBron. Hey, what do you know, more LeBron and Pierce, guys. This one was basically the prequel to LeBron and Pierce duels. This is also a very underrated moment in the Celtics' journey to the 2008 championship. Almost 10 years later, everyone remembers the 08 Celtics as this dominant team that no one stood a chance against, but that's far from the truth. Aside from a series with 8-seeded Atlanta that went 7 games, LeBron was able to carry Cleveland to a 7th and final game in the Garden. As a kid, I saw this as a formality, thinking Boston simply had let the series drag on too long and that they'd dispatch the Cavs easily, but they actually came within a few minutes of being eliminated behind LeBron's amazing 45 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. With Boston's new Big Three, many people had forgotten Cleveland had even made the finals the previous year and had immediately crowned Boston as the team to beat. LeBron had no intentions of relinquishing that dominance, and he probably would have been successful too if it wasn't for Pierce's heroics. Against what was probably the second best player in the world at that time, Pierce responded with 41 of his own points to go along with 5 assists and 4 rebounds. The crazy thing many people don't even remember about that game, only 2 other members of the Celtics even scored in double digits. That was KG with only 13 points and PJ Brown, who most of you probably don't even know, with 10 points, including some late game heroics. Speaking of late game heroics, with the Celtics up by only 3 points with 1 minute left and the next possession to be decided by a jump ball, Ilgauskas won the tip, but Paul Pierce was able to come up with the ball by diving to the floor, giving the Celtics a crucial possession. Then, with the game-clinching free throws on the line while up by 3 points, Pierce stepped to the line and probably got the luckiest bounce ever to knock down the first free throw, relieving all the pressure off the second. Pretty fitting to go with everything else that happened that night. Pierce saved Boston from the closest elimination scare they had, as they'd eventually move on to be champions. Number 1. Greatest comeback in NBA playoff history. At the time. So I'm making up for a mistake I made nearly a year ago. One of my earliest videos on this channel was about the greatest comebacks in NBA history, and I somehow didn't include one of the greatest playoff comebacks ever in 2002. But first, let's look at why anybody could have seen this coming a mile away. A. Paul Pierce was already one of the best fourth quarter players in the game in 2002. B. The precursor to this event actually happened in December of that season when the Celtics were in New Jersey for a regular season game. They were down double digits, and Paul Pierce went on to score 46 of his 48 points in the second half in a comeback win against them. Yes, you heard that right, 46 points in the second half. And C. The Nets were routinely getting burned in the second halves of games. One of the commentators to this playoff game even brought that up. So this was the Eastern Conference Finals, and the Celtics-Nets series was tied 1-1, and every indication was that the Nets were winning that day. Don't believe me? In the third quarter with 8 minutes left, the Nets had a 65-39 lead. Those are the kind of games you just turn off and move on with your day for. But whoever did end up turning off the TV that day missed what was the best playoff comeback of all time in that year. The Celtics made a furious comeback led by Paul Pierce, who made Richard Jefferson look like he was running in quicksand, blowing by him from multiple open layups and starting the comeback. By the end of it, Pierce had scored 19 fourth quarter points, and he came away with the final rebound off of New Jersey's failed 3-point attempt to tie the game. Pierce finished with 28 points on 12 of 15 shooting, and this was especially significant back then because the East was terrible much like it is today, and Boston actually had a chance to make the NBA Finals if they could ride the momentum from this game to beat the Nets, which they almost did because they only lost game 4 by 2 points. I bet you didn't know we were this close to having a Celtics-Lakers Finals in 2002, did you? Could you have imagined how wrong that would have been? We always remember the Celtics and Lakers as being competitive, nail-biting series, so it would have been horrible to see the Celtics destroyed by Shaq and Kobe. Easily would have been in the running for the most one-sided Celtics-Lakers series ever. So while Paul Pierce did ignite one of the best comebacks ever in a conference finals, the effort ended up fruitless, but nonetheless it's on his resume and serves as a swift reminder of why we all call him the truth. And that's all I got for you guys today. Those are 5 of Paul Pierce's greatest playoff moments. Of course, he has a lot more than just 5 great playoff moments, so if there was some that you would have liked to see in this video, definitely leave that in the comment section. Hit the like button, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. I'm Dom2K, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.